guys, Simply Betta here. Some time ago, I started a juvenile Macrostoma tank, and it was gonna be a Blackwater tank, and I'd never really tried a Blackwater tank before, and I was all excited about it. But as the tank aged, as time passed, I was really confused about something. My tannins would disappear. I would add tannins into the water to make that Blackwater tank, and then they just disappear. You wanna be in my video? Some fish species really appreciate black water. That means the water is dark. It's not crystal clear, it's dark like a tea, kind of like a brown color. This is my dog Phoebe. Water that's the color of Phoebe here isn't dirty. It's full of tannins and humic acid, and a lot of fish species really like it. You can add this to your water by adding like botanicals into your tank, like Indian almond leaves, various natural substances that as they decay, they release these things into the water. Or driftwood is another big one. Driftwood, sometimes it turns your water a little bit brown. It's releasing tannins. Also, you can get extracts and actually put Blackwater extracts into your water so you don't necessarily have to worry about don't fall. Constantly putting botanicals in. So I did that. I would add extracts and water changes. I'd add Indian almond leaves and bark and my wood. And I'd start to see the tannins release and the water get darker, and then it just disappear. And then I realized something. My filter probably had activated carbon in it, and I didn't know it. I have a lovely little Dennerle corner filter. It's great. Like, surely there must be activated carbon in there. Slowly making my water clear over time. How horrible. So I ripped that filter apart looking for activated carbon, and I couldn't find it. There was nothing. There was no activated carbon in the filter. So I put it back in, and then I went back to just not really knowing why my tannins would disappear constantly. And I never successfully kept the water dark from there on out. Just kept not staying dark, so I kind of gave up on it. But I finally figured it out. Apparently, dense mechanical filtration pads and polyfill can clear tannins out of water. I did not know that. I did not know that. I guess it's a little trick in the pond community. You add polyfill to your filter and it helps take the tannins out of your water. In my filter, there's a really dense pad, but when I was ripping it apart and looking for activated carbon, I actually put polyfill inside of it because I removed what was in there, put polyfill in there because I did. I don't have a reason. So I guess I found out why my water wasn't staying black. Learn from my mistake. Polyfill will take tannins out of your water. It took me a long time to learn that. That's the story about how I might have sabotaged my own nice little Blackwater tank. So I guess I might sort of be starting over. Hi, I'm Simply Betta. Here's my sort of shrimpy little juvenile Macrostoma. And here's my even more shrimpy juvenile Macrostoma who's in this little cage for his own protection because this one has decided to be a big jerk. This is my failed Blackwater tank, and I'm going to unfail it right now. My first unfailing is actually going to be to fix this driftwood. When I put this tank together, I had a nice little driftwood arrangement, but even though I pre-soaked my wood, it was still too buoyant. It kept floating up and just ruining everything. So I ended up plopping a rock on top and just giving up and using that rock to weight it down while it lost its buoyancy. So I'll take the rock off, I'll redo the wood, I'll make it look nice. Also, I'll kind of replace my plants around because I couldn't solidify the driftwood arrangement. I just kind of plopped the plants and I didn't really put a lot of effort into it. Before I start, maybe I'll pluck out that algae I've been ignoring for a very long time. Actually, first I decided to catch the Macrostoma and just move them to a little temporary holding tank. So that way I can do a bunch of work in here and not stress them out too much. I'm having to be a little quiet right now. My baby's napping. First thing, I'm gonna remove the plants because I'm just gonna totally redo all of this. So I know that this over here is my Java Fern narrow leaf. This stuff over here in the background I bought as needle leaf. Someone swore up and down it was really needle leaf. I had my doubts. I still don't know, but it might just be narrow leaf. And And then this stuff that I had kind of in the foreground, it was a little variety of Java fern called mini leaf. That's supposed to stay a lot shorter and smaller, and it looks like it stayed true to that. Definitely a shorter variety. These in here, this little area, are some plants that I haven't discussed before, but I will enthusiastically discuss them in a little bit when my baby wakes up from his nap. I'm not waking up my baby to talk about water ferns. It's just gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna take this rock off, and this piece of driftwood better have sunk by now. Been a long time. Yes! Right on. It only took forever. Note to self, pre-soak manzanita for way longer than I previously thought. Sweet, so I have my stuff out. Now I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time plucking out the debris from the gravel. I put the wood back in and arranged it kind of the way that I thought it would look nice. And so now, how am I supposed to guarantee that it doesn't just topple over and ruin my nice little placement? I'm gonna take it out very carefully, and then I'm going to use some epoxy putty that I've used before in my terrarium making project and adhere the two pieces together. You can kind of see the epoxy there. I smoothed it into place, and I'm gonna let that cure for maybe a couple hours, and then I'll put this back into the tank. There was a lot of detritus in the tank just from like decaying leaves and wood. So sometimes when that happens, I put another filter just with a whole bunch of polyfill or filter floss inside of it to just recirculate the water and capture as much debris as it possibly can, basically polishing the water a little bit because I'm disturbing the detritus so much. Since I have to wait a while for that epoxy putty to cure, I might as well start kind of going through some of my plants. I want to inspect to see if there really is some kind of difference between the narrow leaf Java fern that I bought and the needle leaf Java fern. That one person swore up and down was true needle leaf. Let's find out. So I'm choosing like the longest leaf I can find on the needle leaf Java fern. It's very long, very skinny. I'm gonna look at the narrow leaf Java fern. It is also very long and skinny. The needle leaf one is a little longer. I don't know if that's just older or a fluke or whatever. So, official consensus is I have no idea. I'm just gonna put them back in their respective containers. And I think regardless, I'm still gonna put these in two different spots in the tank and just see what happens. So I have the narrow leaf, you know, in quotation marks, the needle leaf, and the mini, which I'll keep in the foreground. And then in this container, I have that new plant that I haven't discussed yet. So let's check this out. You might know this nice little plant as bulbitis. Yes, it is not a disease. Bulbitis is a lovely little plant. It's sort of just like Java fern in its care requirements. It does really well in soft water. It is a rhizome plant, so you don't really plant it down in the dirt. It grows off the rhizome like Java fern and Anubias. It does well in soft water, which is one thing I don't think it does very well in hard water, but that's fine for my purposes. So it's a really lovely little plant. I have a couple different varieties of it. This is called baby bulbitis. It's very little. It has a nice little texture, really nice for nano tanks. I have this here. I think this is bulbitis deformis, which is sort of just like a nice, almost like a medium-sized plant. Like, look at that. That's really cool. I love how intricate it looks. It's pretty. It reminds me kind of water sprite a little bit. And then this is another variety of the bulbitis. It's a broadleaf. This looks like I went and I plucked some leaves off of some trees outside, and they're just gonna go right in my tank. I like the texture, I like the lighter color, and I like how it just sort of looks like a leaf, just a regular leaf. So very pretty. So this tank is going to be just Java fern and bulbitis, at least for now. First, I organized the Java fern. I was taking off the little baby plantlets and separating clumps into easy to manage little sections. I like to use a gel superglue to attach plants to things. It sets up really fast. It's so much easier than doing something like thread, which I used to do. I organized the plants into different sections on the driftwood with the bigger plants in the background, little ones in the foreground, and I think it turned out really nice. Way better than what it did look like, absolutely. So I put it into the tank and and I think it's awesome. So much better, and the driftwood, the arrangement looks way better, and I'm thrilled with it. There were a lot of little tiny leftover plantlets, and I ended up gluing those to miscellaneous objects and putting those into different tanks of mine around the house. Now that I'm happy with how my plants are looking, I'm going to add botanicals. I'm gonna add some things that will actually make my Blackwater tank black and have black water, which is what I want. So how do you do this? You make a Blackwater tank by adding in things that will slowly release tannins and humic acid into the water. Things like certain kinds of dried leaves or husks or nut pods or pieces of bark. One really common item to use is Indian almond leaves or catappa leaves. These are really big dried leaves. You just add to your tank and it will slowly release those tannins. It'll slowly start to disintegrate and decay and get consumed by your tank essentially and make your water kind of brownish. I sell these on my website, by the way, simplybetta.com. Little self-promotion there. You can also do things like Indian almond leaf bark or catappa bark. It's just like little twigs. You can use Brazil nut husks. Look at this, is this adorable? I'm going to be adding some Brazil nut husks. Why? These have a special little place in my heart because these are actually from Dean of Dean's Fish Room. You probably know who Dean's Fish Room is. He's all over the place on Aquarium Co-op channel and Tazawa Tanks. And he sent me a little care package. Look at these things. These are from one of his trips to Peru. So they're special. These are special Brazil nut husks. But my Betta Macrostoma will be getting one. The rest are gonna be for my coconut bras. Don't say that, that's stupid. So thank you, Dean of Dean's Fish Room. Now some people maybe don't want to rely on adding botanicals and seeing what happens to their tanks. Maybe they want to do a product. You can actually get Blackwater tank extracts, which are a concentrated liquid with lots of tannins in it, and you dose your tank in it to slowly bring up those levels. I have some of that. Blackwater by Brightwell Aquatics, my sponsor. This stuff works great. I'm probably going to be using this when it comes to water changes. Like you make a clean batch of water and instead of having to like soak a bunch of leaves in it for a week, you can just add a little bit of Blackwater extract, which is really convenient. I'm gonna be doing a mix of all three. Indian almond leaves, some catappa bark, Brazil nut husks, I mean all four, and the Blackwater extract. One thing to note though, I wouldn't suggest just throwing tons of stuff into your tank all at once. These are things that can actually affect your water chemistry depending on some factors. If you're doing things like this, I'd recommend just doing a little bit at a time. Like tonight, I think I'm going to put in a Brazil nut husk and maybe a leaf. Then I'll just let it sit for a while before I just start slowly adding more and more. So just a note, if you're doing things that might affect your water chemistry, do it slowly. But he said you should probably boil it anyway, just for safety's sake. So I'm gonna boil it for a few minutes, make sure there's nothing, hiding in there. So in this little adventure, I learned something valuable about dense mechanical filtration pads and polyfill. If you like Blackwater tanks, don't use either of those things in your filter. I hope you enjoyed my Blackwater Macrostoma tank redo. I really like how it turned out. It looks a lot better now, and the water's finally staying dark, and that makes me happy. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.